Okay, let's go.
All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about the psychological traps that are, well, probably costing you money as a trader. Because let's be real, the biggest risk you face in the market, it isn't some bad stock pick, it's what's going on inside your own head. This quote from Anna's Nin, it absolutely nails the problem. When you and I look at a trading chart, we think we're seeing pure, objective data. But we're not even close. We're actually seeing it through this filter. A filter made of our own biases, our hopes, our fears. We're seeing the market as we are, not as it is.
And you know what? There's actually a word for this. Apophenia. It's just our brain's natural, built-in tendency to find patterns, even when there's nothing but random noise. You know, like seeing a face in the clouds? That's apophenia. And while that can be kind of beautiful in everyday life, in trading, it can be an absolute curse.
So that leads us straight into what I call the pattern recognition trap. See, we are just hardwired to find patterns. It's a survival thing, right? It helps us make sense of the world. But here's the problem. The financial markets are not the natural world, and that same wiring can seriously mislead us.
I mean, think about it. Ever since we were kids, we've been trained to connect the dots. We learn to take a bunch of random points on a page, draw lines between them, and poof, a picture appears. A house, a tractor, whatever it is. And we bring that exact same habit right to our trading charts.
So it's really no wonder that our brains try to do the exact same thing with a price chart. And this leads to what you might call a deception chart, where our eyes are actively hunting for points that confirm a pattern we want to see. And in doing so, we create this illusion of a perfect, predictable trend.
And the logic, it seems so simple, right? You just connect a couple of high points, draw that line out into the future, and you call it a trend line. And when the price breaks that line, boom, you've got a signal. It looks so easy when you're looking back at old charts. But then you try to trade it in real time, and suddenly, the whole thing just falls apart.
I mean, come on. How many of us have made ourselves paper millionaires by drawing these perfect lines in hindsight? What we forget is that in a single trading session, there can be something like 78 5-minute bars. You'd have to be a machine, a robot, to perfectly act on every single one of those signals without any hesitation or error. It's just an illusion.
Okay, so if we can't trust the very patterns our eyes are showing us, what the heck can we trust? Well, first, we have to tear down some of trading's biggest myths. We have to start embracing the reality of what we're actually doing here, which is playing a game of probabilities, not certainties.
Let's just be brutally honest for a second. Some things, like the ones you see here, they just don't exist. And we need to add a few more to that list. The perfect trading system, the magic indicator, that flawless chart pattern that just prints money, it's all a fantasy.
Now, this one might ruffle a few feathers. The classic risk versus reward ratio. The source for this explainer had let's say a pretty strong opinion on it, basically saying we should just get rid of the whole concept entirely.
And here's why. The risk part is actually pretty easy, right? You just set a stop loss. But the reward part? How can you possibly know what your reward's going to be? Let's say you risk 20 points to make 40. The trade goes your way and it hits your 40-point target. Do you actually take the profit? Heck no! Your brain starts screaming, maybe it'll go even higher. And just like that, your theoretical reward target gets tossed right out the window the second greed kicks in.
So if perfect systems and risk/reward are just myths, what actually works? Well, the answer might just lie in this incredible story from the source material, all about a super successful hedge fund that basically broke all the rules.
So get this, the story goes there was a hedge fund trading South African shares on a 1-minute chart. Yeah, you heard me right. That strategy alone sounds completely insane for a fund, but this is where it gets really interesting.
So how often do you think this successful fund had to be right? What do you think their win rate was? Take a look. 20%. On a really good run, maybe it crept up to 30 or 35%, but on average, they were wrong 80% of the time.
So let me ask you, straight up, could you psychologically handle that? Could you actually stick to a system knowing you're going to be flat out wrong 8 times out of 10? It just flies in the face of all those glossy ads promising 90% accuracy, doesn't it? And yet, this fund was wildly successful. So here is the absolute crucial point. The advertised dream, it sells a high hit rate. And that leads traders to hope and pray and sit on their losing positions because they're so convinced they have to be right. The professional reality, it accepts a low hit rate. Their secret wasn't being right all the time. It was that the second the market didn't immediately go their way, they got out. Instantly. No hoping, no waiting, just out.
And that brings us to the most important part of this whole thing. It's not about finding another rule or another system. It all starts with awareness. The most important tool you have isn't on your chart.
The legendary trader Richard Dennis, founder of the Turtle Traders, he said it best. He claimed he could literally publish his exact trading rules on the front page of the Wall Street Journal for everyone to see, and people still wouldn't be able to make money. Why? Because the rules aren't the secret. The secret is the person who's executing them.
So the solution isn't another indicator or buying some weekend course. It's about holding up a mirror and taking a long, honest look at yourself. Because truly profitable trading begins with an awareness of where you personally keep going wrong.
You know, for a decade, the source for this explainer watched traders make the same mistakes over and over and over again, hoping and praying a bad trade would magically turn around, moving their stop loss farther away to avoid a small loss, only to end up taking a massive one, cutting their winning trades way too short because of fear. These aren't system failures, they're psychological failures.
And this little analogy from the source just illustrates the point perfectly. While he was tracking his calories, he realized he was totally focused on the handful of chips as the main problem, 350 calories, but that harmless little dollop of mayonnaise he was adding, that was another 300 calories. It was a hidden problem nearly as big as the obvious one, but he never even saw it until he started really paying attention.
And that leaves us with one final and really crucial question. It's not about the big, obvious losses that you remember. It's about the small, repeated, harmless little habits that are quietly destroying your account. So take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, what's the mayonnaise in your trading?
Right, let's talk about trading, but maybe not in the way you're used to. See, this explainer isn't about giving you a new technique or some secret indicator that's going to make you rich. No, we're going to talk about something way more fundamental: how to completely change the way you think about the markets. And that's such a powerful idea, right? Because so many people start their trading journey completely backward. You're led to believe that the secret to success is somewhere on the chart, hidden in the data, when really it's inside your own head. We're told that if we just get good enough at technical analysis, we'll win. So what do? We spend countless hours, days, weeks, heck, even years staring at charts, absolutely convinced that if we just learn enough, we can crack the code. So we load up our toolkit, right? You've got your Bollinger Bands, your MACD, your RSI. The list just goes on and on. We learn all of them, believing that these tools hold the keys to predicting what the market's going to do next. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Thanks to some new rules over in Europe, brokers now have to publish a piece of data they kept hidden for years, and it reveals a pretty startling and frankly uncomfortable truth about trading. On huge platforms like CMC Markets, we're talking companies with thousands and thousands of clients. Around 75% of their retail accounts lose money. Just let that sink in for a second. 3 out of every 4 people fail. So the really big question is, you see the problem here, right? It's a massive contradiction. If everybody's learning the same indicators, using the same tools, reading the same books, but 75% are still losing, then maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't the tools. It has to be something else. The real battle isn't finding the perfect moving average crossover. The real challenge is happening right between your ears. It's a human problem, and it's driven by one incredibly powerful, incredibly primitive, and very, very expensive emotion. To really understand this, I want to share a story from our source that shows just how destructive this emotion can be when real money is on the line. It's a gut punch of a story, really, and it all went down around Christmas. So picture this. It's Christmas Eve, and a trader absolutely nails it. Catches a perfect 500-point drop in the Dow Jones. You know that feeling, right? When you're just totally in sync with the market, you feel like you can't lose. But then, the very next day the market is open, it does something it has never done before in its entire history. It completely reverses course and rallies 1,100 points. And our trader, who was so sure the drop would continue, shorted the market again, right into the path of an oncoming freight train. And the result? A loss of 90,000 pounds, gone, in a single day. That's more than the average person in the UK makes in an entire year. And it all happened because of a failure to manage that internal, emotional response when the market did the unexpected. So why does this happen? Why is fear so destructive in trading? Well, it's because our brains, amazing as they are just not wired for the kind of random chaos you find in the markets. They evolved to keep us alive, not to trade the S&P 500. It even has a name, apophenia. It's our brain's built-in obsession with finding patterns, with creating a story out of random noise. It's what helps us see a tiger hiding in the rustling grass. But it becomes our worst enemy when we start seeing surefire signals in what is essentially random market noise. The takeaway here is pretty stark. In the markets, your brain, your best asset in almost everything else in life, can be your own worst enemy. That normal, intuitive thinking that serves you so well everywhere else, it can lead you straight into a losing trade. So what's the alternative? Well, think about it. If 75% of normal, smart, capable people are losing money, then success in trading must come from thinking and acting in a way that is, well, not normal. It's time for a whole new way of thinking. And the contrast is just night and day. Look, on one side, you have this 75%. Their whole game is about being right, predicting the future, fighting every losing trade. They see patterns everywhere. But the winning trader, their goal isn't to be right. It's just to make money. They don't predict, they manage randomness. They don't fight losses, they accept them. And most importantly, they're not focused on the patterns on the chart, they're focused on managing the fear inside themselves. And this brings us to what might be the single most important idea in this entire explainer. We all know the saying, practice makes perfect. Well, in trading, that's a lie. Practice doesn't make perfect, it just makes permanent. Whatever you're doing over and over, you're just burning that habit deeper into your brain, whether it's a good habit or a bad one. So the real question you have to ask yourself has nothing to do with what indicator to use or what the market's going to do tomorrow. The question is about you, the actions you take, the thoughts you have, your emotional reactions. Are you practicing habits that are actually going to serve you, or are you just getting